here we are. This is our first webinar of the year, and it being a North American SEM Collaborative webinar. We will be doing polling. We're starting with right now. So our first icebreaker poll, I'll flip over to our first question. So what you need to do is go to menti.com, and I can't see this.
3600265.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So you can do this in any number of ways. Open up a new browser window on your computer, and again, menti.com 3600265. Open it on your phone, smartphone. Yeah, don't use a flip phone. Probably would explode if you did this. So don't use a flip phone for it. But our question is, our opening icebreaker question is, if you could change the SEM acronym, what would it be? I'm going to leave this open to you. You can either change what the initials stand for, or you can change the entire thing. Ooh, all right, we're off to a good. Okay, yeah. Some are going traditional, even old school, using the CEI one. BPE, best program ever. Energy and emissions. Yeah, I was wondering who's going to be saying emissions in theirs. Nice. If someone uses the word awesome in their acronym, I'll give you bonus points. Super energetic management, very nice. That's how Wendy does it. Decarbonization management. I feel like you all are plugging our next webinar. No acronym, what? Hold on a second. I don't know about that. Maybe that's correct, actually. That's probably a good idea. Less acronyms. Strategic operations management enablement. At least it spells another, yeah, it spells a word, some. Emissions, yeah. EIO, that's probably John Feldman. Who else? Heat, Heroes for Energy Awesomeness Today. Thank you. You are the winner. Although I can't know who actually put these in. So, yes, better energy management. What? Okay. All right. Who put in the chat acronym? I want to know that. Actually, if someone can spell Wendy, I would be really impressed.
That would take a lot. That W is hard. So is the Y. Yeah.
Wendy's tried. You've tried, right? Yeah. This is great. All right. Fun. There is so much of what we do is actually, I would say, is marketing and in SEM, and how we describe these things and how we relate and yeah, actually is interesting here going old school. It used to be called CEI, or I'm going to say it. There have been many names, I guess I'd say, that were used before. There was a general kind of harmonization around 10 or so years ago to SEM, but before that, there were more of a proliferation of different names like CEI. Wisconsin focused on energy, where John Nickel is. They had the practical energy management. There have been some other programs that kind of took off for a little while, like HPEM from the high performance energy management from BPA. There was Energy Trust's original SEM program was called IEI, which was Industrial Energy Improvement. Yeah. Anyway, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of our names change in the future, and that'll be exciting because it'll be for a good reason, maybe to do more emissions or maybe to do other things. Make efficiency great again. Mega. Well, yeah, okay. I don't think it's too soon. Let's go back to the deck then. What we're talking about today, we're having, again, a quick intro, regional update from a few wonderful professionals who are going to let us know what's going on in the southwestern United States. We will talk then about SEM Lite, and then talk about some SEM, our collaborative activities and involvement. So with that, we're going to go to the regional update. Let me make this a little bigger. And there. Okay. So yeah, coming from the Southwest, we have 3 individuals: Steve Workington from Excel Energy, Rainey Carlson from Rocky Mountain Power, and Neil Colway from SWEEP, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. And so each have agreed kindly to come on and provide 3 to 5 minutes or so of what's happening in their necks of the woods with respect to SEM. And so with that, we'll first pass to Steve. Steve, nice to see you.
Hello, good to see you, Chad, and good to see everybody else on the call. Steve Workington with Excel Energy. I have several of our commercial and industrial energy efficiency programs here in Colorado. Our Colorado territory is Denver, and basically Denver and the I-70 corridor. And my biggest and best program is SEM. We've been doing SEM formally since the beginning of 2019. We were doing what I'll call some predecessor programs that were close to SEM, but had some missing pieces, I would say. The transformation to SEM, before I forget, I want to credit a great deal to Neil, who'll be speaking in a minute, and SWEEP, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. Many thanks for the help and support of getting SEM launched in its current form. We have 50 to 55 customers right now, and the model that we've had is individual engagements. Have not yet completed a cohort, but more on that in a minute. About half of those customers are carryovers from our legacy programs, and they're getting fewer and fewer over time. And for the first year of actual SEM by name, we kind of called it slow growth. We wanted it to grow, but slowly, and only recently have we really started to push for a lot of enrollments, and we've got a lot of brand new enrollments and quite a few pending. In 2019, our total savings was right about double our 2017 predecessor program savings. So we had a 2-year growth rate of 100%. In 2020, we again had a 2-year growth rate of about 100%. So 2020 was about double the achievement of 2018. And then, of course, executives are looking for us to more than double it and accelerate it from there. Challenges in our territory is that Colorado territory has a very small industrial market per capita compared to the number of folks who live here. We don't make a whole lot of stuff. We do make a few things, but not really a manufacturing center. Secondly, is our renewable mix on our grid leads to very, very low ARRs. And what that means is a big hunk of our program has been part of transforming our whole portfolio to time of savings calculations and time of savings emphasis. How do we reduce energy use during those generator peak periods? Because we have lots and lots of wind here. So that's a wonderful thing for the environment and greenhouse gas emissions, and to continue in that direction, we've begun focusing all of our programs on peak coincident time savings. I will skip my third challenge that I was thinking about for the sake of time, but if anybody has questions about anything that I'm saying, you're always welcome to contact me. Something I'm really excited about is we have started 2 cohorts, or are pending, excuse me. We've started an indoor ag and extraction cohort, and then we're pending the start of a school district's cohort. And those will be our first forays into the cohort delivery model, which will, that's been kind of a hard time getting going in the age of COVID. But I'm going to be real excited when we actually get them going and when we can actually have on-site meetings. With that, I will leave it. I couldn't think of a great story other than the fact of, me in 2016 was pretty, I was pretty skeptical. And through folks like Neil and Chad and quite a few of you on this call, you've made me a true believer. So that's that.
Thank you so much, Dean. That's great.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Dean. That was very helpful and very good to hear, and definitely a huge function that the North American Collaborative plays is trying to foster connection and development of our entire SEM community. So it's so great to hear from you and to hear from, again, the next person from the Southwest who's agreed to come and provide some updates, which would be Rainey Carlson from Rocky Mountain Power. Rainey there?
I am. Hey, everyone. Good to see some familiar names and faces. A lot of you I do not know, but I'm the WattSmart Business Program Manager here for Rocky Mountain Power, which is Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. And I came on in 2014 and started doing SEM in 2015. And we've had an SEM program really from about that time. Chad helped us get going when he was at a previous firm, and Cascade Energy as well on the industrial side. We also have had Mike Hatton with Solarc on the kind of commercial healthcare side be very instrumental in helping with SEM for Rocky Mountain Power. I'm not going to be on video, Chad, but I do have a couple slides in lieu of my my not so pretty face today to share, just to kind of summarize where we've been in the last couple of years. Is there a way to, let's see.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Now let's see if you have a share button. Maybe? Do you have a share button that appeared?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll just go with this. Okay, so I'll just go through each state real quick. So in Idaho, a fun thing to share that we did, hopefully Shelley is on or will be on, to give kudos to Idaho Power and BPA. We did a partnership cohort, kind of a joint cohort up in Idaho that Cascade helped with. It was culinary water focused. And again, Rocky Mountain Power, Idaho Power, and BPA. And Rocky Mountain Power had 4 customers. I believe the others had a total of 6. So about 10 customers involved in that cohort. And we did it, at least for the Rocky Mountain Power side, in 2 phases, 2018 and 2019. And you can see the outcomes there, about 683,000 kWh in 2018, and then with some higher savings to close out in 2019. So that was a great effort. Really, really fun to be a part of. Chris Knopf on our team was the project manager for that. And in Idaho, we're just looking for kind of the best fit for energy management up there. I don't believe that we have any traditional SEM planned at this time, but we may as opportunities present themselves. For Wyoming, we've had a little bit harder time kind of cracking that nut up there for SEM. It's, sort of small business and then large industrial in our territory, right? And so we haven't done any traditional SEM thus far. In 2020, something fun to note, and I'll key in on this in Utah as well, but we did what's called a compressed air mini cohort. And this was an idea of Cascade Energies to do a training event, webinar training event, and then follow up with the attendees one-on-one to implement energy management measures. So it's definitely not true SEM, but it was an innovative way during COVID times to kind of come together for a training event and then work on the energy management, mostly remotely on each of the interested customer sites. We did that in Wyoming. And then 2021 and beyond, we're looking at SEM, traditional SEM up there, either single customer or an industrial cohort. And we're just beginning the conversations about that with Cascade. Nothing formed quite yet, but we do know that there's good opportunity for it up there if we can kind of find the right fit for those heavy industrials. For Utah, a couple slides, 2019, we had a culinary water SEM cohort of 9 participants. Again, this was Cascade Energy, and then Hansenell and Luce is a valued partner of ours for culinary water. They know our customers here in Utah very well, a very strong relationship that we've built with our culinary water systems throughout our SEM engagements. We've had SEM cohorts for culinary water prior to 2019 as well, but I just wanted to do a more recent recap. So we had 9 customers participating there with some very high outcomes at the about 10 million kWh. And then we did some single customer SEM with Solarc. Mike Hatton helped us with that, a single site for almost 1 million in kWh savings. And then Solarc also helped us with what we call persistent recommissioning. It's not a workshop structure. It's not, you know, an energy policy kind of traditional SEM, but it is, you know, more regular team meetings and over time getting those energy management results. And so this was a mix. I just kind of did an aggregate here, a mix of 8 different projects with the state of Utah and then a couple of university customers for some good outcomes there as well. And then we did do a compressed air mini cohort in Utah in 20, I guess this should have been, sorry, this should have been on the 2020 slide. So I'll segue into that for 2020. We did do that compressed air mini cohort in Utah, no traditional SEM, and then the persistent commissioning of 3 different state and university customers there. And then this year, we'll have another project close for a cohort, which started last year and is finishing this year. It's unique in the sense that it is culinary water and wastewater combined cohort. For this one, it's 7 customers. We did do this mostly remotely because of COVID. So that was a good way to kind of test the remote workshop format, and Cascade has done a great job adapting to a remote workshop. And then in the future, we're just going to kind of keep looking for opportunity. We know that we can do more single customer SEM. We know that we can do different types of cohorts, potentially, you know, a manufacturing cohort or something like that. But we have been focusing on the water wastewater to where we feel like, you know, we want to move on to different customer sectors and kind of see what we can do with other customers. But as usual with program management, it's always kind of as forecasts and budgets and customer interest allows. So our 2021 pipeline is really strong. We're probably looking to have something close in 22 or beyond for Utah. That's it. Great.
Thank you so much, Rainey. This is very helpful. Definitely the Rocky Mountain Power Team covering 3 states. There's a lot going on and definitely has to, potentially adapt things to those different markets and so on. So this is really good to know.
We had a question in the chat that I actually can't answer, which is, what is culinary water? I assume it's wastewater, but I actually have never heard that term either. Dustin, thanks for bringing it up.
Rainey, do you want to take a quick pass at that?
Yeah, it'd be the opposite. It's the water that comes out of your tap. So fresh water.
Opposite side, culinary. That makes sense.
Great. All right. Well, then let's go back to our third and final presenter from the Southwest. Neil Colway from SWEEP. Neil, here you are.
Hi, everybody. I just have a few brief updates to fill in, I guess, what's happening in some of the other states. Thanks, Steve, for being so gracious about help from SWEEP, and I'm excited to hear about the success of your program, and especially the cohort with indoor ag. That's pretty cool. So in New Mexico, Public Service of New Mexico will be launching a new SEM program. This coming year will be the first year, so there's not really much to say about that, but I'm happy to see that, you know, partially through prodding of SWEEP, they are moving in that direction. And then in Southern Colorado, Black Hills, Chad, you know more about this than I do, but Black Hills is continuing with a sort of pilot SEM program partially funded through the Colorado Energy Office, and Chad has been working with them on that. And so you can elaborate. I just talked to Patty this morning and said there were 3 companies, and they're about halfway through the process, and she's excited about that. And then next year, or this in the 2022 DSM plan, they plan to offer their own SEM program, and so we'll be working with them to help them in any way we can. Nothing much happening in Arizona, nothing much happening in Nevada. So those are my brief updates there. But one other thing I want to mention, which I think is pretty interesting, is I've been working with the cannabis growers around Boulder County, and we did a kind of cool thing of working with the Cannabis Conservancy. We launched a new carbon conscious certified label for the cannabis growers, and it basically requires them to adopt the basic principles of SEM. Like they have to have a goal, develop their metrics, have some policies in place, and then they have to start doing things and show some improvements in the second year, etc. And so I think it's a pretty cool model. The Cannabis Conservancy kind of goes and visits the companies one-on-one after they get their basic stuff in place and helps them get some of the things going. But anyway, it's a sort of simple, cheaper way to do SEM, and I'm looking forward to see if they can actually get some results out of that.
Great.
So that's
thank you so much. Definitely, and yeah, like we're saying here, there's a decent amount of things happening in the Southwest, and definitely highlighting a couple of those things here between Colorado and Utah, and actually, yeah, not just Utah. Sorry, the multi-state area that Rocky Mountain Power covers. Then Neil does a great job of convening a lot of things either in Colorado or in the other states, and so really exciting to see what's happening. Thank you. So with that, let's get to the core topic. I will say for SEM Lite, SEM Lite's the core topic. We sent out a survey. We get probably more respondents to the survey than we've gotten in any survey. So I'm not sure if it's for these webinars. I'm not sure if it's a fact of everyone just wants to get in and be a part of the community and be engaged, or if people are really interested in SEM Lite, or both. So thank you all to you who completed the survey. But let's go to the polls one more time and open up. What is one word you would use to describe SEM Lite as you think about it? And I should say, if you filled out the survey, we said, I'll flip back to this. The SEM Lite is a lighter program that either requires less customer time, requires less program budget, is appropriate for smaller customers. Any one of those things, all of those things, it's up to you. Or definitely seen it defined in different ways. So, but I really want to hear from the group here. And so if you go to into your poll, there we go. We're starting to see some responses. If you closed your Mentimeter window, your Mentimeter window, go to menti.com, menti.com, use the code 3600265. But I'd like to see a word. We seem to have a winner so far, Wendy. Yeah. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
Streamlined.
Yes.
Yes, I see that.
but seeing some other ones here, cheaper.
Smaller
or-
customers, smaller businesses.
Simpler
Mhm.
calcs. That's two
Yeah, there's a
words,
lot
but
of-
we'll let it go.
And there's like
Um,
simpler calcs, generalized calculations. The words keep changing on the screen. It's a little,
Yeah, these giant sets of
yeah.
words.
Mhm.
This
This
is
one's
great.
interesting.
And
Cherry picking.
that is
I'd
interesting.
like to know more about that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Maybe cherry picking either maybe the opportunities or your customers, or
I bet,
Yeah, that's
well,
interesting.
again, hard to know. I would say maybe, Wendy, it's like cherry picking SEM program requirements, if you will.
design. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like which parts of minimum elements. And there's definitely, we saw a couple of schools of thought on that from people that is, yeah, if you don't do everything, then that's not SEM. And therefore, can you do a lighter version of all the things in the minimum elements? Or is that okay to say, no, we need to prioritize different ones of these things? And
Yeah.
I will say there's not a runaway winner in that argument.
We got it. Nick says program requirements, focused activities. Chad nailed it. I guess I was off the mark. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I like this one too, entry level. That's an interesting concept, right? A lighter touch, getting people interested in it. That's an interesting take on SEM Lite. I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Hard nut to crack. So true.
It is. Well, we'll leave this poll open for another minute or so for folks to get into, but I wanted to share the responses, your responses to the questions in the surveys. So we asked a number of questions that we thought would help to kind of get to the root of this. But before we even get into SEM Lite, we want to understand what programs are out there. And we did have to say kind of a caveat for all these questions was, what were you doing before COVID hit? Or what would you have been doing without COVID? So this is like a little counterfactual, if you're an M&V geek like myself and some other folks on this call, what would you have done if it didn't exist? Because of course, in these times, in this last year, everything's virtual. So we know that. So we're trying to kind of say, okay, of course, put that to the side. What were you doing before? So we can see, of course, SEM cohorts. And by the way, interpreting this graphic, red means it's not on their radar at all. Blue means something they've done but did before, not now. And then like the light blue would be you're doing right now. So seeing these tall light blue bars indicates things that are happening today, versus the other blue bars, but blue and gray bars between the light blue and the red would be things that are on the radar but are maybe launching soon or launching further out. And again, red is like, what, I've never heard of this, or it's not on our radar at all. I will explain a few things for you. So SEM cohorts, I think that doesn't need an explanation. Individual SEM delivery is called different things by different folks, but it's basically where a program works with one customer at a time. And maybe it's for like large industrial, maybe it's for a commercial thing where you've got multiple sites that you're working with one energy manager, energy director. That's typically what it looks like, but it can be called other things. Partly are fully funded energy managers. In the Northwest or in certain parts of the Northwest, it's called like resource conservation managers. But basically, and definitely in Bonneville Todd, you can nod your head if it still exists, like an energy manager. Yes, okay. Type of offering. BC Hydro, in Ontario, there's another program like this. So it's a common enough for sure, definitely reasonably common. Online only SEM webinars, things that are only going to be done online and not have any kind of in-person component. This would be web-based, like pre-recorded modules or pre-recorded, pre-built out types of training types of things. So that was what that would be. Funding for an SEM intern. And then lastly, this one, commercial and/or industrial energy reports. I had a few folks who were saying like, what is that? I don't know what that is. I will say, I had a hard time finding these now. I know a few years ago, there used to be some commercial energy reports. These are kind of like home energy reports, like OPower has, and it definitely had and still has, as I was able to see since they're bought by Oracle. But for a while there were some firms that provided like business energy reports for commercial customers. They could provide insights like, hey, your energy was more than you used before, and they may have some tips and tricks and things that people would do. So I would call this a very, very light SEM. But again, I wanted to put it on here just to know. And again, it appears that it may not be super current, although some people respond, so they're doing it right now. Some folks did provide some thoughts on what they're implementing again right now, what's happening. few things call out, maybe like the refrigeration operator coaching that did happen. I know Energy Trust had that as an offering until probably 5 or 7 years ago. Building operator certification program, that's something that's happening in a few parts of the States for sure. Yeah, a couple other things here. And again, I'm moving quickly because we'll provide this deck to all of you, and it'll be a little more cleaned up in this. You can better decipher it. The next thing is, so if we set the table here before with the last question, now we're going to get into what people are doing to, we said streamlining was probably the most common definition or common trait of what SEM Lite would be. If you are in your programs, how have you been shortening or streamlining these different parts of your programs? And so same key here. So red means that's not planned or not in your radar. Dark blue on the left equals something you did in the past but aren't doing now. And then light blue is now, in between is sometime soon or less soon. So definitely the quick way to interpret this then is, again, tall little blue tower here, people have been shortening their duration of their workshops, like how long the workshops are. They've also been trying to make easier templates for their SEM tools, just really focusing on kind of hitting the easy button for these things. But decent spread in other things, like shortening the technical assessments, definitely making those virtual or just shorter, faster. Implementation timeline, hopping around here just to kind of call out in rough magnitude. Shortening the time frame, like if it used to be a year-long or an 18-month-long program, perhaps making that a shorter amount of time. Shortening the amount of workshops people attend. So if you had 6 in a given year, you may have shortened it to 5 or 4 or some other number. But a few other things as well. Some people are doing. The depth of the SEM content. So we talked about, do you go below the CE minimum elements? Is that something you consider you have done in the past? Do you do things like shortening your EMA duration? Can you abbreviate that and still provide value, still provide kind of the spirit of what an EMA does? Energy management assessment, sorry. And then lastly, can you alter the rigor? And maybe that's not even the entire word, maybe the spirit or how your overall MNB approach to streamline it. And so I put lower statistical thresholds as the one that you could relate to, but it could be just using more simplified types of models that just with fewer variables, which may relate to having lower thresholds. The comments that people had on this, how again they've been doing this to shorten or streamline it. Yeah, some web-based energy scans and treasure hunts were happening before. Maybe some tools to help with 50001 ready or to apply 50001 across an enterprise. Just scheduling fewer contacts with sites. Any of the key things to call out. Again, this will all be provided to you, but I just wanted to highlight things that are interesting. Just, if they had reporting requirements for participants, to shorten those or make those less technical or less involved. Again, all interesting or valid approaches. And again, we'll see these all after this webinar. Have you utilized these resources to streamline the customer experience and or to reduce the program expense? And so we just wanted to call out things that are available and maybe to let you know about some things if you haven't used these. So some online learning modules. I know at least NIA has some available on SEM Hub that I know at least some programs have utilized as a part of their design to try to make things easier or less time intensive for participants. Energy Star, of course, has a couple of resources, most famously probably the portfolio manager for the commercial sector, but also there's their guidelines for energy management, which is a nice little brief compendium of things you should do. And if you can direct that to them and as a resource, then that can be quite valuable. The 5001 Ready Navigator platform, many of you, this is definitely bumping up and seeing again the taller tower here, but it's the tool, it's the platform itself that basically brings together all the 5001 Ready requirements and tasks and resources in one place. And again, we're seeing some people respond that they have begun to utilize this in their programs. DOE also has a couple of other tools that are more technical, the ENPI tool and as well as the ENPI Lite tool, a couple of different twists, both have pros and cons. And then lastly, we talked about, it's kind of like the energy reports, but basically using those and or virtual energy audit reports. There's some other resources out there. Some of these like that one, these would maybe not be free, but some of them, there are some resources out there that can be valuable. Other things here, yeah, people are utilizing to streamline it, maybe like to dovetail in with like state offered programs, IAC audits, industrial assessment centers, for example, or other types of resources that are out there that they can use to save cost and or to leverage. There's an energy mapping template that's on the 50001 Ready platform. It's pretty slick and can provide some good value for your programs, perhaps. If you're thinking about SEM Lite for different sectors, what are we thinking about? And so again, here, we talked about wastewater before. That's something people are thinking about. This one is not really a sector, but is more of a type of customer, which would be people that have graduated from your program. So if you have them in a more intensive program like a cohort, then when they finish with that year or 2 years, do they roll into something more of a light touch approach? You can see some other high-level trends there. Biggest barriers. So this is more strongly agree to strongly, I'm sorry, strongly agree is red, dark blue would be strongly disagree. So if people agree with something with one of these statements, then it'd be more on the right side of this. And I guess I'd say the general thing to see here is that all of these things have an impact or barriers to implement SEM Lite, whether it's your cost effectiveness thresholds from your program, the ability to reach those small enterprise customers in the first place. It can be hard just to connect with these people, versus then also being able to continually engage with them. Because if it's one person, you may get them recruited to be in your SEM Lite cohort or whatever that thing is, but then they can't maintain it. It's hard to stay in touch with them. It's just, they don't have the time to stay involved with it. M&V expectations, can they be streamlined, or is that a non-starter for your organization? So that can be a challenge. And then lastly, program requirements. So things that your program requires. So like if your enrollment agreement is, I wouldn't say this, onerous is the right word, but can you make it lighter? Can you make it easier for folks in smaller organizations that just don't have a lot of time or would be intimidated by a program agreement? But there's many other kind of program requirements that could fit this example as well. And I think, yeah, so that's the main points to call out. In the interest of time, I will, again, just reiterate that we'll provide all this information to you afterwards in even a slightly more attractive format. But we do have we had a final question was, people, kind of like other things that people were bringing up. One is, should this be called something else instead of SEM Lite? Should, this one here about, should it be called tactical energy management instead of strategic energy management, or should it be operational, or other ideas? The whole idea of, if you don't meet the minimum elements, then have we agreed it's not SEM? It's a good question to ask, and which kind of lines into here. And yeah, and a couple of other tips and tricks and pieces of advice that people have, thoughts they have about how to go about this. Calling it ISO 50005, it's a new standard coming out that's going to provide some resources to help customers go from where they are, and kind of a stepwise approach to move up and get more and more sophisticated in what they're doing. So with that, we will again thank you all for your input on the survey, and I think this is now time to ask the closing question about SEM Lite. What form of SEM Lite would you imagine implementing the soonest? And again, if you close your browser window, go to menti.com, type in 36000265. What form of SEM Lite would you imagine? Could be this year. This is non-committal. You type it in here. I'm not going to go back and say, Todd, you said you're going to do this. What's going on? No, this is what you can imagine. What would you imagine based upon your knowledge of the challenges, the barriers, the opportunities, the customer types? What excites you? So we're seeing some good responses here. Virtual, yep, yeah, of course. If you're not doing things virtual right now, I'm going to call the authorities. But let's see, yeah, lighter touch, more online training modules.
The virtual cohorts to reach more rural customers is definitely something that Energy Trust has kind of seen a benefit of moving from COVID, is being able to be more flexible, bringing different same types of organizations across the state together, which has been really fun.
That's great. It's a great call, Wendy. Oregon is not unlike virtually every state, has some big population centers and some big widespread geographies. And so using these approaches can be a great way to connect with those people.
Grocers, that's an interesting idea, doing SEM Lite with grocery stores. Yeah. Employee-oriented SEM, really focusing on the people that don't control the equipment.
Mm-hmm. Or that don't, that may not have the purse strings, but you can kind of start with them and work up.
Yeah, equity-focused SEM offering. I really like that idea, making SEM available to those organizations that maybe wouldn't otherwise meet certain thresholds.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, we'll leave this poll open. And if you have other thoughts, do share, and it will again capture these polls. Will be a part of the content we'll provide back to you. So with that, we're going to transition to what's happening. What's happening in 2021? How to get involved with the North American SEM Collaborative besides attending this wonderful webinar. You've maybe seen this before. If you haven't, you can go to nasemc.org and you can see what our aims are, what we're trying to do. And I say we, it's Wendy, Greg, me, the rest of the leadership team, and all of you. We're all working together on this. So this is what this forum is about. So good level set for us. Wendy did call out that we have added some new people. And so if you don't know all of our faces, I'll just do this really quick. Wendy Gibson from Energy Trust of Oregon. There's me. One of our new members, Shelley Jensen from Idaho Power. Another new member, Derek Okada from SoCal Edison. John Nickel from Leidos over here in Wisconsin. Walt Tennyson from US EPA. Katie Dooley from NYSERDA. Giselle Procaccianti from NEEP. Our new president, Greg Baker in Vermont. And finally, Peter Bassett in Quebec. So, and calling out again the new folks, Giselle and Katie as well, the four new folks. So thank you so much for all the work that a lot of folks are doing here. We showed this slide to you before that in our last webinar, kind of why the webinars lay out. We want to show you these, I guess I'd say overall the events. So we've got webinars that are happening. This is our first one of the year, but these will be monthly unless we have a quarterly members roundtable. And so we'll have a few of those this year. And imagine those as being, we'll have some themes and things we'll be discussing, but it'll be a lot more breakouts and group discussions about different topics and things that are important to you, and having you be heavily involved in those meetings themselves. So our first one will be in May. We wanted to have a little more time to really prepare and make that be a very dynamic and engaging event. The SEM Summit, this is the SEM Summit, for those of you who know in the years past, those have always been immediately before typically, or in the middle of one of the ACEEE summer studies. The industrial summer study this year is in July. So we are actually, same thing, we're gonna have our summit in July. The exact dates will be worked out here soon.
One thing I'd add about the member roundtables, Chad, is because they're kind of going to be a little bit new, is the real objective for those are going to be, how do we help you? How do we help the person in the room, in the Zoom room or actual room, Zoom room probably, but in the Zoom room, how do we take one of the barriers that you're experiencing, one of the issues that you're experiencing, and overcome it together? And then kind of the other objective is, how do we look at the list of things we want to collectively do together, and how do we make decisions about moving forward for those? So it's really interactive. It's about supporting you guys, and it's about supporting the community.
That's great. That's great. No, they're to your point, Wendy, they're going to be, we greatly enjoy these webinars. We hear great feedback from all of you as well. So that's just really good to hear that these webinars really work, but we're excited about the members roundtables as being a forum to really, again, solve some things or work through some things as groups, get everyone talking at the exact same time. Even at the exact same time, get everyone talking in the sessions themselves. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So look forward to that. More information coming soon. The webinar topics that we've got slated on our calendar, and this is based upon your input, your voting. at the end of this last year. So SEM Lite is where we are now. Next month, SEM and GHD